AGFs again, so I thought I would pop on live. I know I'm going live 2 days in a row. Who even am I? But some of y'all missed the Sunday live, so I thought I'd hop on again as I work on this project, which is cutting Art Gallery Fabrics 2.5 edition fabric to package up for the advent calendars. So this has to get cut a little more meticulously than cutting half yard bundles or fat quarters. Like with a half yard bundle or fat quarter, you can add like an extra ½ inch, and then if you're a little bit off, it's no big deal because you've added that extra ½ inch. Whereas with this 2.5 edition, you want people to be able to get every bit out of these strips. So I'm cutting sets of 4 strips at a time, and I have to cut pretty close to on this dotted line and cut them all apart. So it's a much more tedious process. It's very similar to like cutting panels, but instead of a panel, this is binding fabric that I'm cutting. So if you're not familiar with AGF is Art Gallery Fabrics. They are a fabric company out of Florida, which is the other side of the country for me because I'm in California. But I work closely with them. I love Art Gallery Fabrics, and it's the only fabric that I use. And this is their binding fabric. They launched their binding fabric last year. It's called 2.5 edition, and it's designed specifically to be the binding on quilts, and I love it. I've used it on several quilts. I used it on a quilt a week ago, the quilt that I can't show, otherwise I totally would. But I just loved how easy it was to use, how great it turned out, and the options. And with many of their lines coming out, they include a 2.5 edition line that goes with it. They have some, I don't want to call them generic, but more versatile, I guess, 2.5 edition lines that go with a lot of different fabrics. So you know what, I can't show you the quilt, but I can show you the back of the quilt that I did the 2.5 edition on. So how about I do that? By the way, if you are, I'm not going to do a backflip. If you are just popping in, leave me a comment. Let me know where you're from, where you're popping in from. Okay. I cannot show you the front of this quilt, so let me fold it so I'm only showing you the back of this quilt. There we go. Okay. This is the back of the quilt, and I used this yellow 2.5 edition, and you can see it turns so perfect. And then the inside of this 2.5 edition, so the other side, is actually a more narrow stripe. So with this one, it gives you 2 options, either the wider stripe or the narrow stripe. And then with fabric like the one I'm cutting right now, you have options of like which of these designs you want on the front, which ones you want on the back. And you can pick basically just about, not quite every combinations of every 2, but there's different ways depending on how you apply the binding to your quilt that you can decide which 2 designs are going to show up, and that way you get a really cool, fun, unique design on the front of your quilt. AGF is quality fabric. You could say, yes, you could say that the people at AGF definitely GAF. They do. I know them personally. This is accurate. Hey, Sandra, welcome from North Carolina, New Hampshire. All right, y'all all over on the East Coast. I had a busy day of packing orders with the all the quilt doodle pads that were ordered through yesterday afternoon. So anyone who ordered after yesterday afternoon, those are not out yet. But I got everything before yesterday afternoon or yesterday evening shipped out. So this line is the Christmas in the Cabin line. It is the line that I'm using for the advent calendar. And I fold these up so that people who are joining in and using the Christmas in the Cabin line can have binding fabric for their finished project. Hi, Paula from Florida. God, it is all East Coasters. That's wild. That's so funny. I guess us West Coasters are still at work, which I definitely am. I got everything packed up and then I went to the post office and dropped all the post office packages at the post office. And then I got to UPS just in time to get the UPS packages scanned in and on the UPS truck. The truck was already out front as I was going in, and they were able to get those all scanned super quick. My local UPS office is fabulous. There are 2 local UPS offices, or 2 UPS stores, I guess, close to me. And I have a favorite, and that's the one that I go to. And they're awesome. There was a line, but there were 3 employees there. There were 3 registers and 3 employees, and they were all working hard to get through that line. So they did a fabulous job. I really appreciated them. And so all those packages are out, and off they go. So I'm cutting these. I have to cut these all by hand, so it does take a lot more time. And the number of people that are, I was really surprised. Like this is the first time that Art Gallery Fabrics has had 2.5 edition for when I'm doing a Christmas bundle. The Advent Calendar Kit. Last year, 2.5 edition didn't exist, so this wasn't a thing. And this year it does, so I thought, you know, just for giggles, let's add it as an option if people want to have the binding fabric to go with their project. And people are really excited about it. I'm excited about how excited people are about it. So it's been really fun. But it's going to mean a lot of cutting. So even though this stuff isn't going to ship until November with the advent calendars will ship in November. It's weeks of work getting this all prepped and ready to go. And since this is such a tedious, long process, I wanted to go ahead and get as much of it done as I can, because as my kids will tell you, finished is my favorite. So if I can get this finished and done and out the door, then even better. All right, as you're popping in, let me know where you're from so far. Everybody's from the East Coast, so I don't know, do we have any Midwest? Do we have any Mountain? Do we have any West Coasters joining in, or is it all East Coasters tonight? Except me. And Fritz, because I know that Fritz is a West Coaster. So if you're not familiar with AGF 2.5 edition, it is a binding specific fabric, although I am looking for some fun projects and ways that I can use it as a different, like for different things, not just binding. I definitely have some fun ideas planned for ways to just play with it. But it's all printed. So you don't even have to measure your binding. It's already printed at the right width. So you just cut, sew, press and sew, and then sew again to get it on the quilt. And it looks really good. I love, they do a really good job of like curating these bindings. Last year I did the 9-patch block of the month as the calendar, and I bound that with AGF 2.5 edition because as I was working on the calendar, it was when they just started having the 2.5 edition out, so I wanted to be able to play with it. I think that's the first thing that I ever bound with 2.5 edition. Hi Helen from San Antonio. Okay, so we have more than just the East Coast on the call, or on the call, on the video, on the, I don't know, on the live? Yeah, on the live. Oh, which reminds me that I'm a terrible YouTuber because I can't even remember what I'm doing. But in the vein of trying to be a better YouTuber, if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. We hit 70,000 subscribers last week, which was a really big deal. The goal is to get to 100,000 still by the end of the year. That's a huge goal. Adding 30,000 more subscribers by the end of the year is, I mean, it's not impossible. It's definitely been done before. I don't know if it's been done by a quilter to get 30,000 subscribers in 3 months. That's a lot in the quilty universe. But I believe that if anybody can do it, this community can do it. So we're going to try. We're going to keep trying. Hi, Donna. Welcome, welcome. So have y'all used Art Gallery 2.5 edition fabric before? Are you familiar with it? Do you know about it? Is it news to you? Have you played with it before? Are you interested in learning more about it? I definitely would love to do some more videos showing binding quilts with it, because I think it's so cool. So let me know. Do you play with 2.5 edition? And how do you bind your quilts? Are you machine bound? So the one that I showed you, it was 100% machine bound, front and back. I just whipped that binding on, got it done, and it looked, I was really, really excited with the way. That's one of the best machine bindings I've ever done. I was really, really proud of it. So are you fully machine? Are you only will you ever hand bind on the back, which can totally respect that. I've done more than my share of hand binding quilts to the back. So are you machine? Are you hand? What is your preferred quilting technique? All right. I'm trying to concentrate on that line. I thought that talking and concentrating on the line wouldn't be too tough to do at the same time, but all right. So, oh, we've got answers. So Helen K says she hand sews. Helen P is machine. And Donna is only hand bind on the back. So y'all are traditionalists, which is totally allowed. I do love the look of hand binding on the back, but I'm also a mom of 2 busy kids and run a busy business. So I like a good shortcut. So I have been known to machine bind my quilts, and I've gotten pretty good at it. Like pretty sneaky. Okay, speaking of binding, this is, not sure this is a good story to tell, but we're going to tell it anyway. Many moons ago, back when there still was a San Diego Quilt Show, I entered some quilts in the San Diego Quilt Show. And the cool thing about the San Diego Quilt Show is, first, they took every quilt. So it wasn't a juried show. A juried quilt show is where you send in pictures of your quilts, and then based on the pictures sent in, they decide if your quilt makes it into the show or not. The San Diego Quilt Show, if you entered a quilt, your quilt got in, period, end of story. So everybody's quilts got into the San Diego Quilt Show, which was lovely. But when you took the picture, you didn't have to send in a picture of a finished quilt. You could actually send in a picture of a pattern and fabric and like just commit to, yes, I will get this done by the deadline that I have to go bring the quilt in, right? So I love a deadline. Deadline motivates me. And apparently I got a little over ambitious one year in entering quilts. And I entered quilts that some still needed, like, I think they were all finished quilt tops, but needed quilting and binding. And I'm also a procrastinator, which is why deadlines are helpful. So I was quilting and binding those suckers that last week like a mad woman. And there's one that it was not going to get bound in time. I mean, it might have even been 2 of them. And when you entered quilts in the San Diego Quilt Show, you could pay an extra $10 and get judges' feedback, which would be just like a couple lines on a sheet of paper of just like a comment, like a little bit of, yeah, just feedback. Otherwise, you either placed or didn't place, and that's all the feedback that you got. But if you paid like $10, which was, I mean, it's not a lot of money. It might have even been $5. I don't remember. Anyway, you would get judges' feedback. So I had paid for judges' feedback on all my quilts already when I entered them. And this quilt, I stitched it to the front by machine, and I wanted to hand stitch it to the back. I wasn't as good at machine stitching to the back at that point, but I ran out of time. So I folded the binding to the back, and then I used Elmer's glue to glue it down. And I did get a comment, so it wasn't stitched down. It was literally entered in the show and hung in the show with glued on binding. And the comment from the judge was, you could work on your binding a bit. Like, it was like, your binding's a little wonky. I don't think they even noticed that it wasn't stitched. It was just a little wonky. So that's hilarious. Let's see. Paula H does both depending on the quilt. That's basically how I am. And depending on what, you know, the deadline and my time and like what the quilt is for, there's like a lot of variables before I decide if I'm going to be hand binding or just throwing it on the machine and getting her done. Hi, Remo. Welcome, welcome. Welcome, Donna. Donna in Huber Heights. I don't think I know where that is. I would have to go look that up. All right. It is Monday, and there's a youth group that meets upstairs on Mondays, so I don't know if you can hear them banging around. But yeah, I remember I've learned during the school year not to record video on Mondays because of the banging around. I actually have recorded some videos where I've been really careful about the pauses and the silence, because in some videos in the like pauses where I'm like working on something, you can hear singing in the background from the singing upstairs. So that's pretty funny. Just one of the joys of having neighbors. When I used to record the videos at home, sometimes you would hear a leaf blower in the background of one of my neighbors doing yard work. So yeah. 20 minutes away. I don't know what we're 20 minutes away from. Minutes from Reno? I don't know. All right, I don't know that I'm going to finish cutting this bolt. I had already started cutting on this bolt. I have many bolts of this now that need to get cut, which is why I'm trying to get a little bit done at a time. All the hand cutting does get a little tiresome. So just figure if I'm able to, you know, cut away a little at a time, little at a time, little at a time. Eventually, those little bits will all add up until it's all done. There are some projects, though, that I just want to eat the whole elephant all at once. This is one of those, how do you eat an elephant? Big thing, they got to eat just one bite at a time. So I'm just trying to take a bite at a time. Take a couple bites at it tonight, a couple bites another time. Probably when I'm on calls, conference calls, things like that. Like seeing people from Ohio that live close by, fellow quilters. Oh, that's fun. Huber Heights, Ohio. Got it. Got it. All right. I'm going to keep going. If you have any questions about binding, about Art Gallery Fabrics 2.5 edition, when I pop on these lives, I'm up for chatting about whatever quilty stuff we want to chat about. The last time I did a live, we talked about adding borders because someone was adding borders to their quilt, and I was able to give some tips on adding borders. I do have a borders video planned, but I don't have it filmed yet. So knowing your questions and what y'all would like to hear more on also helps me with making sure that I'm making the right kinds of videos for y'all. Stuff that's helpful and informative. Cocoa Bay, Oregon. Yay! I love AGF as well. It's the only thing that I sew with. If you feel like once you feel Art Gallery, you just know. You just know. And for those of you from Florida, Art Gallery is in Florida. They are in Miami. They used to be in Hollywood, Florida, but now they're in, I want to say it's in Miami proper, if I remember right. Because they had to get a bigger warehouse. They were growing so much. They've got this, I got to go last year and visit. It was actually my first time getting to go. And they have this huge, gorgeous warehouse that they let me just run around in. I had a great time. Super fun. We had a blast playing. Oh, thumbs up. Okay. So yes. All right. I need to be a good YouTuber. If you do thumbs up, oh, I've got an alarm letting me know that it's 6 o'clock. If you do thumbs up and hearts, just to like let me know that you're enjoying the video. It also lets YouTube know that the video is a good video, and that helps. There's like a whole algorithm that helps decide if you or other people are going to see any of my videos at all. So the more that you interact with a video by commenting, by doing thumbs up and hearts and those kinds of things, not just for me, but for any of the YouTubers that you enjoy, it's so helpful. Yeah, leaving comments is huge. Thumbs up and hearts are fabulous. Subscribing is amazing. It helps grow the channel. And a growing channel is one that YouTube will continue to show to more people. So it's super valuable. Okay, let's see. Borders are difficult for me also. Okay, we'll talk about borders again in a second. So a lot in Centerville has classes, and so alongside, I love in-person classes, and I love local quilt shops. If you can take in-person classes, honestly, it's the best. I do my best on YouTube, but me showing you on YouTube is straight up, it's going to be second best to an in-person class. It will never, ever, ever be able to compete with someone being able to look over your shoulder and give you on-the-spot feedback about exactly what you're doing. So in-person classes, if you can find a local shop who has in-person classes, that is the best. Oh, Randy, that's so sweet. Randy says, I must say you're wonderful. I have really appreciated your guidance. I'm a newbie quilter. I'm happy to help. I've been quilting for over 30 years. I was not born with any of this knowledge. I've learned it over time, and I'm so happy to pay forward what I've learned so that we can have more quilters who are enjoying making quilts. It's so funny when I tell people, like I'm out and about and people ask what I do and I tell them that I'm a professional quilter. They always have a story about a quilt. Like most people out and about in the world are not necessarily quilters, but they have a grandma who quilts, or they have a quilt that was passed down from, like, most people have a story about a quilt that's meaningful to them. And those were made by people like us, right? So that's pretty cool. Let's see, what else? Hello, Karen from Ohio. Do I have a subscription box? I do not have a subscription box, but once a year, I have an advent calendar that I do, which is probably the closest thing I do to a subscription box. I just launched the advent. It's in pre-sales right now. So if you get it by Friday, you actually get the pre-sale price. And that's, I'm working on cutting fabric for binding for those kits if people want to add binding to their kits. And the advent calendar is, ooh, I have one that's opened. I'll show you last year's real quick. So this is last year's that I opened up on video to kind of show people what it looks like. It gets all wrapped up really pretty in like tissue paper. Ooh, I can show you because I have it here. This year's advents are getting wrapped up in pink polka dot sparkle tissue paper. I was so excited when I found this. So this is what this year's advents are getting wrapped up in. I'm ridiculously happy about that. Okay. Sorry. I can't help myself. Okay. So in the kit, you get a zippered pouch, and in the zipper pouch are a bunch of envelopes. You might call them envelopes. That's okay. And then each of the envelopes have a number on them. So this one is day 5. So this is the envelope for day 5. There's 12 envelopes in there. So numbers 1 through 12. And on day 1, you open day 1. On day 2, you open day 2. If you're someone who is allergic to surprises and wants to open them all the moment they arrive at your doorstep, totally allowed. Just don't share it online until the right day, so it doesn't spoil it for anybody. I designed this. This is the advent that I always wanted when I was like looking for an advent calendar as a quilter. And this is yeah, I don't know. It's also designed to be a surprise for those of us who are the surprise creators in our family. So if you're the one who creates the Christmas magic, then I want to create some Christmas magic for you by having an advent calendar that's a surprise for you every day. Okay, so just open up day 5 of this advent. And this was last year, so this is not this year's. This is the 2023 advent. The 2024 advent is still very, very secret. In it is a little pattern that has the instructions for how to put that day's block together. Last year's blocks were all 6-inch finished diamonds. This year's blocks are 4-inch by 6-inch rectangles, which is really fun because we get to do half rectangle triangles, and we get to do some really fun unconventionally sized flying geese. I've sewn the first 12 blocks already, and they're super fun. And then on the back is a QR code, as well as the full YouTube link, so you can type it into a computer or scan it with your phone to be able to watch the video. And I every day post the video walking you through making the advent calendar. And yeah, simple instructions, and then the template, and the template has the masking still on. So you would peel off the masking. You're the very first person to get to open your templates. This year's templates actually only have masking on one side, which is nice. So it's not as much work for you to peel it off, but you peel off the masking and you get a fresh, brand new, just for you template to be able to cut the pieces for that day's advent calendar. And so over 12 days, you make 12 blocks and then you put them together to make a mini quilt, which is why it's called the mini quilt advent. If 12 days isn't enough for you, that's cool. I have a bonus 12 days. This year's bonus 12 days actually includes 3 bonus templates as well. So you can make 24 blocks, and then there's finishing instructions to take all 24 blocks and make a quilt with it. So this was not meant to be a pitch for advent calendar, but since y'all asked, let's see. Oh, questions. No in-person classes close to you. That's going to be sad. Yeah, so the advents ship out the first week in November. I order, so pre-sales are going on right now. Based on how many pre-sale, that's how I determine how many to order. And then I order them. And then once they sell out, they sell out. So last year, I ordered extras because I really love the diamonds. So I bonus ordered extras, and then my manufacturer actually had an extra overage, an overage beyond what they normally do. And I said, I'll pay for them, send them to me. So I actually have leftovers from last year's advent calendar, which I don't know. Like this time of year, I normally have like maybe a dozen of last year's advents. And this year I have a couple dozen, which is surprising. But I did over order, and I don't like, I'll have to see how many I order this year. But pre-order, you're guaranteed your advent. Anything after that, it's based on how many I order. Okay. Well, welcome, Myra. We love new quilters. Remo started, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Remo started hand quilting when I was 8 years old with my mom. And I was doing cathedral window by hand. A lady told me to make the quilt by machine in 2015. I haven't looked back. Yes. So I've done some hand quilting, but machine quilting, it's faster. It's super accurate. It's not quite as, I mean, it's less work. And you get some really beautiful quilts. So I don't want to knock hand quilting because there's nothing to knock about hand quilting. But I do the majority of my quilting by machine. I do English paper piecing. That's the hand quilting that I do. And I actually wrote a book on paper piecing that includes English paper piecing and foundation paper piecing. Yeah. So the advent, oh, that's a good question. I don't know off the top of my head. Like I'm going to try to say a number and it's going to be wrong. So if you give me a second, I might be able to pull it up on the iPad while we're chatting on the phone. So it's CarolinaMoorePatterns.com. Need to find the browser on the iPad. There we go. Can't type today. So I split up the advent calendars so that there is the main advent calendar. So you go to shop the store. Don't know that it's under fabric bundles and kits. No, those are just the fabrics. So the 2023 or 2024 mini quilt advent calendar is $75 in pre-sale and $85 after Friday. So after Friday, the price goes up to $85 because then the pre-sale closes. And then the bonus days is $35 for pre-sale and $45 after pre-sale closes. And the bonus days include 12 additional patterns that use the original templates from the first 12 days, plus there's 3 extra bonus patterns in there. So right now, if you get the mini quilt advent and the bonus days, that is $110 total for 24 days. And that gets you 15 templates, 24 patterns, access to all 24 videos. Yeah, it's super fun. Hopefully that helps. I really want, like, the main advent itself, the 12 days, 75, or when it's full price, 85. I really wanted an advent that was also under $100, because I feel like once things start to get into that $100 and more price range, it starts to get less and less affordable for a lot of people. And I hate pricing people out of being able to do the fun stuff in quilting. Quilting can be such an expensive hobby, but it also can be really beginner friendly for people who have access to a sewing machine and have access to some of the basic tools as they start building up their own like collection of, you know, good scissors, rotary cutters, their good rulers, all of that. But if you wanted to just start quilting, like, you know, nobody quilts and you just wanted to start it all by yourself, out of the gate, then it can get really expensive. You have to buy the sewing machine, you have to buy the rulers, you have to buy the rotary cutter, you have to buy the rotary mats. And if you don't know what you're doing, it's a lot of money for maybe, you know, not a great result the first quilt that you make, and that's a bummer. All right, I'm going to be cutting just a couple more, and then I have to go for the night because it's I know y'all on the East Coast, it's later over there, but it's heading towards dinner time here, so I want to go home and enjoy my family. I have fabric kits for the advent calendar. So if you're just doing the 12-day, then the actually I just bundled some up yesterday. Let me show you. If you're just doing the 12-day, then a fat quarter bundle is good, and this is the fat quarter bundle. It has 8 fat quarters in there, so that's 2 yards. And then the half yard bundle, if you're doing all 24 days, and this has the exact same 8 fabrics, but these are half yard cuts, so this is 4 yards of fabric. So you got the fat quarter bundle or the half yard bundle. And there's no rule saying that if you're doing the 12 days, you can't buy the half yard bundle. It's just if you're doing the 12 days, you need at least the fat quarter bundle. And if you're doing the 24 days, then the fat quarter bundle probably won't be enough, and you want to size up to the half yard bundle. So those are the fabric kits. You don't have to use my fabric, but those are the fabrics that I'm using as I go through and make mine. You don't have to make yours the way that I make mine. And the instructions are really free form so that you are welcome to use your own fabrics if you like. But then, and this is how we started this live today, is that Art Gallery Fabrics last year started coming out with what they call 2.5 edition fabric, which is their binding fabric. And that's what I'm cutting right now. The 2.5 edition fabric is fabric designed to be the binding on quilts. And so I'm cutting this is 1, 2, 3, 4 binding strips. So I'm not cutting the individual strips because that would take me forever, but I'm shipping them out as sets of 4, and that would be enough for the 12 or the 24-day mini quilt advent. And then you take these strips and you fold them to make your binding, and then you can get either just the cars or just the peppermints or these fun leaves, or this fun kind of menagerie of different holiday motifs on your binding. So this binding fabric is Christmas in the Cabin is the fabric line that I'm using from Art Gallery Fabrics. I'm not using the whole line. I just pick 8 fabrics from the line. And then this is the binding fabric that goes with Christmas in the Cabin. And so I'm offering this, and folks who have been buying the fabric bundles have been excitedly buying this binding fabric. I'd initially only bought 1 bolt of the binding fabric, but that is not enough. So I had more that came in today. And so because it's going to be so much work cutting, because they all have to be hand cut. You can't cut them with a rotary cutter on double layer, because the bottom layer might not necessarily line up exactly with the top layer. And I don't want to cut them off. When I'm cutting fat quarter bundles, I can just add an extra 1/2 inch. And then if I'm a little off, it's not a big deal. But with a binding fabric, if I'm, you know, like a 1/4 inch off, it ends up being a really big deal on the binding fabric. So they have to be all cut by hand. And so that's why I'm popping on figured I'd pop on live while I sat here and cut this and hung out with y'all. You're welcome, Jennifer. Thanks for the thanks. All right, friends, I'm trying to be a good YouTuber. So if you have not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit subscribe. We hit 70,000 subscribers last week, which was super exciting. So if you want to hit that subscribe button and help grow the channel, that's super appreciated. And tell a friend. I've got lots and lots of videos. Okay, I did promise that we were going to talk about borders a little bit before we left. So if you're hanging out waiting for borders, I apologize that it's taken so long, and let me do that now so that I keep my promise. Okay, so when you're putting borders on a quilt, what you want to do, tip number 1, is you want to, so we're going to pretend that this is my quilt, right? I've got top and bottom borders, and I'm going to do side borders. Depending on the pattern, it might have you do the top and bottom first. It might have you do the sides first. Doesn't matter. In my example, we're going to do the sides first, but this applies for the top and bottom as well. You measure one side, you measure down through the middle, and you measure the other side. You add those 3 together and you divide by 3. And so when you add 3 numbers together and divide by the number of numbers, so adding 3 numbers together and dividing by 3, that gets you the average of that. So let's say this one was 49, this one was 50, and this one was 51. Then the average would end up being 50 on this quilt. And in this case, the average was that middle number, but yours might not necessarily be, and that's fine, because you might have like 51. I don't know. I'm trying to get it to be like, I'm not gonna be able to do that math in my head, but they might be like all kind of over the place a little bit. And that's okay. You want the average of those 3. And if you're doing top and bottom borders first, same thing. Measure the top, measure across the middle, measure the bottom, average those 3. That gets you the size that you're going to cut that border. So in this case, on my side borders, we said my average number was 50. So I'm going to cut my 50-inch strip at whatever width it is. So 6-inch borders, 6.5-inch strip, 5-inch borders, 5.5-inch strip, 3-inch borders, 3.5-inch strip. You get the picture. I'm going to cut my borders the right width, and I'm going to cut it 50 inches tall. And now remember, this side was 51 inches. This side was 49 inches. Only the middle was 50 inches. So a 50-inch border is not going to fit exactly against either side of this quilt. That's okay. We're trying to have the borders help square up the quilt. So what you do is you take your border and you pin the top edge together, the bottom, like almost, I mean, this could almost be like my border, this flap right here. You're going to pin at the top, you're going to pin at the bottom, you're going to pin at the middle. Then you're going to take from the one end pin to the middle pin, and you're going to find the middle of both, then the middle of the middle, and then you're going to find the middles, and you're just going to add pins in that way. So you're not going to start putting it up here and pinning all the way down. You're pinning the top, the bottom, the middle, and then you're going to pin the middle, and then the middle, and then the middle, and then you're going to do the middle here, middle here, middle here. You're just going to keep pinning in the middles of pins. And what that does is it's called easing. So if you're, in this case, I've got a 50-inch border and a 51-inch quilt, that 1 extra inch is going to get eased along the entire 50 inches of that border. And so they'll end up both being 50 inches. And now I can sew this. But if you were to take your border, even if this is a 51-inch quilt and I cut a 51-inch border and I put it on there and I just sewed all the way along, at the end, you would end up with like an inch or half an inch of like extra either border or quilt that you go, I don't know where this came from. Or another way you can do it is you just take your whole border and you don't even measure how much and you pin it on, and then you just sew, and when you get to the end, you cut off the extra border. What will happen is you'll end up with what we call a wavy border. So depending on how much stretch you end up having, you'll see it, like if you go to a quilt show, and this is not the quilt police judging people, but when you go to a quilt show and you see a quilt hanging and you see the bottom is wavy, that was a wavy border. And the wavy border happens from a quilt that's not exactly square. It has extra fabric in there. So the way that we prevent that is by easing our borders in. And then same on the other side of our quilt, we take, this is our 49-inch side, we're going to basically be easing the extra inch of border into the amount of quilt. And that will help keep the whole quilt square. And then we're going to do the same thing when we add the top and bottom borders. Now we're going to measure, which includes our border and includes our border here, the entire width, including the big borders, cut our top and bottom pieces, the average, and sew them on, easing them in. Now, if you have, we talked about this yesterday on the live, but that's okay. I'll talk about it again because if you have a quilt that has, so you already have put on borders on a quilt and you don't want to undo them, but now you've learned about this and you're like, oh my gosh, when I lay my quilt down on the floor, the borders are roughly, I've got wavy borders when I lay down on the floor. And I don't want to unpick all those borders because can I please just be done with this quilt? Yes. So what you want to do is if you're sending it to a long armor, let them know. Or if you're quilting it yourself, then you just need to know that you want to put extra quilting in the borders, because if you quilting more densely sucks up the fabric it's magic. It really does. And it helps suck up that extra fabric that you have in your borders and will help your quilt lay more flat when it's all done. So that is my like quick overview on doing borders. Hopefully that helps. And it helps, like I've now had this conversation with different folks on live twice. So when I finally am able to do my big border videos, which hopefully is soon, I have the quilt top already done to do that border video. It's the quilt top I did at the fair. I want to add borders to it because it's a little small. I want a little bit bigger quilt. And so that'll be a fun video to add borders to, or that'll be a fun quilt to add borders to in video. And it doesn't have a deadline, but I need to get it done. All right, friends, last minute or so for questions. I'm going to cut one more of these strips, these binding sets. I still have a fair amount of fabric on this, but oh, here's another tip. If you want to know how much fabric is on a bolt, every 2 folds is about a yard. So I have 1, 2, 3, I have about 5 yards to go. So I've cut about half. No, I've cut more than half. There's usually 15 yards on a bolt. Yep, this is a 15 yard. Oh, look at that. I'm like 2/3 of the way through this bolt already. Yay, progress. Progress. All right, I'm cutting one last one. One last one. And I'm going to call it a night. Unless you have other questions that we can't help but answer on this live. Feel free to leave. Let me know where you're hopping in from. So far, it's been mostly East Coasters, which is, it's late, y'all. If it's 6 here, it's like 9 o'clock there. It's late. It's late. Trying to talk and focus at the same time. Shouldn't be hard. I'm focusing on cutting. It's a totally different thing than talking, you would think. But still, apparently, the brain power it takes to do both at the same time, I don't have that anymore at 6 o'clock at night. After 6 at night. All right, friends. Only 6:30 in San Antonio. That's fair. Well, thanks so much for hanging out. I'm gonna pop away now, but I'll try to pop in on lives a little more often. So especially if you have notifications on, you'll know. Make sure that you subscribe. Try to be a good YouTuber and remind people to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you haven't already given this video a thumbs up or hearts or whatnot, please do, because that totally helps. And thanks for coming and hanging out with me while I cut up some fabric. Good night, friends.